Hey, cosmic superstars. Welcome to Honest Flow. My name is Teo, and I am delighted to have you here today with me. This is a spontaneous type of recording, just an FYI. I'm sort of going on the fly because, yeah, that's just how I am. I like to do things sort of spontaneously, and, whenever I feel like hopping on, I hop on. Like, there's no structure at the moment, but, having said that, I am mindful that there will be a certain point where I should be a little bit more structured and plan out, sort of the content that I'm trying to release on here. And there's actually a lot that I want to speak about and a lot that I have to share about all kinds of topics and things that I find that are still kind of unjust in this world. But having said that, yeah, it'll come out when it's ready to come out. But I'm sort of moving slowly at the moment. That said, so today's video is actually about manifesting or manifestations. And, I thought I would sort of share a few tips or tricks, not even tips and tricks, it's just basically share how I have manifested things into my life and sort of the state of being or the energetic state that you should kind of try to be in when you're trying to manifest something. And, just a few, yeah, just tips. I don't even know what else to say, but yeah, apologies if I'm talking fast. Let me just breathe so I slow down a bit. Okay. So yeah, today we are talking about manifestations or manifesting. And to be honest, I've never been that sort of person that has to do like spell work or cast spells to manifest. I know there are people out there who do like to sort of do that, and no judgment. That's if that works for you, that works for you. But for myself personally, I've never really had to do spells. And yeah, the way I've manifested things into my life, especially the really big picture things, like it's just happened through my mind. I am very connected to my psychic mind, and I find that when I really put my mind towards something, like I have a clear vision of what I want, it tends to happen eventually. And it's not like an instantaneous sort of manifestation, it's more like a slow burn type of thing. And I guess because with those kinds of manifestations, I'm talking big picture things, like really big things that I'm after, it takes a little bit more time for the universe and, spirit, everyone to sort of coordinate everything and bring it forward for us. So, yeah. So, for me personally, when I have wanted to manifest something, I'm actually very clear in the sense like I know what I want. And I also sort of add little disclaimers or like sort of conditions on what I want as well. Like I don't just say I want this. I will say I want this and it has to have this. Now that's different from being super specific. And what I mean by that is for example, let's say you want to manifest a guy or partner, guy, girl, whatever floats your boat into your life. You don't want to be going, I want a guy or girl that's yay height, yay weight, um yeah, like brown eyes, blonde hair, must have, I don't know, this build, physical body, and, must have a job exactly like this and has to make this much money. Like that's a bit too much. You're asking a little bit too much of the universe, right? You're better off saying something like, I would like, my future partner to be loyal, funny, a person that makes me, makes me feel happy, has sort of common interests, something like that, like specific but not specific, if that makes sense. Like you don't want to get too in the detail and the nitty gritty of who this person you're trying to attract in your life is. Like, just be clear on what you want and like be very, I think, in tune with your feelings. For me, manifestation is not just having a clear vision, but also having a clear feeling of how that person or thing would make you feel. Right. So that's just a very important thing to sort of really take note of when you're trying to manifest something in your life. And if you're going to try to manifest something, how I do it which is just with the psychic mind. So just be clear on what you want and, add a few conditions to sort of make it not too broad, but not too detailed. So, For example, I'll give you a perfect example. So I manifested my investment property into my life, believe it or not. So I actually used to work in real estate, and I was sort of working in there for a couple. I worked there for a couple of years, and FYI, I was not an agent. I don't like sales. I was actually a campaign manager, which basically is the person who sort of coordinates everything to get the sales or auction campaign ready onto the market. That's what I do. Okay, that's what I was doing. So anyway, so a year into my real estate gig, I started to, I learned a lot about real estate and the industry and how to sort of work and deal with the different people like agents and stuff. And because of that, I knew I had the know-how on how to buy a property, and that would serve me better, if that makes sense. So anyway, about a year in, I sort of told myself that I was like, you know what? One day I'm going to have an investment property. One day I am going to, yeah, own my own house. And, not only that, I remember like feeling, like really feeling that, if that makes sense. I really felt that it was coming and I was going to get it. And I also put this like conditions such as I am going to have my own investment property. Not only that, it is going to be a property that is lucky, a lucky property. And I'm looking for an off the plan property that is going to get delayed. And if you're wondering why I want a property that's getting delayed when it's being built, it's because if it takes more time for the property to build or finish, it means I have more time to save up for the deposit. So that's sort of the conditions I put on myself. And then sort of I just let it go, let it do its thing, and then went about with my life. But having said that, about 6 months later, I was in a better financial position. And so I had to start taking action to help manifest that property into existence, right? So with certain manifestations, you have to understand you can't just plant the seed into the ether, into the universe, and then just sit there thinking, yep, it's going to happen. It's like, going out there going, I want to meet the man of my dreams. And then plant the seed. And he's going to be this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then you sit there like waiting at home on your couch, doing nothing, not even like going onto those dating apps or anything. Yeah, if you're doing that, it's like that's not helping you. There's certain manifestations that you actually need to take a little bit of action on. But the thing is, we've got to sort of discern when we should take action and when we shouldn't take action, right? So anyway, with that said, back to my story. So about 6 months after planting that seed, I started doing some research. I started looking at, every weekend I would spend a few hours a day sort of looking at real estate ads, looking around for perfect places. And then finally, the right property appeared, and I was like, I have a feeling this is what I want. Then I went down to the agency, put a deposit, like, I'd like this property, please. And, and it was like, a done deal. And because I sort of knew how to negotiate and how I could sort of lower things for me or help me on my side, I was able to sort of do the right negotiations. And I did everything by myself, by the way. No one helped me. I just did it by myself. And yeah, and so I signed the contract, signed the contract, and the property was meant to actually finish building the following year, but actually it got delayed, which meant I had more time to save up money. But long story short, I manifested my investment property by not only planting the seed and believing that it would come to me, but also taking action to make it happen. So that's sort of one manifestation story. Now, another manifestation story where it's a little bit different, where I did not have to take action, is my last job. So my last job, I worked in aged care, but I was sort of in the corporate office or headquarters within a project team. So with that job, how I manifested that. So prior to working in that job, I was actually in a news media company, News Corp, to be totally honest. I was working under News Corp, but for one of their sub entities, a newspaper industry. Is that what you call it? Anyway, I was basically the editor's personal assistant. Anywho, so I was working in that job, and at the time, my partner or husband now, he was and still is working for this big telco company, and he's in sort of a high position. And I would watch him sort of like not get up until later in the day, and he would get to work from home, and I would come home be really jealous. I was just like, it's not fair, I want to work from home. Working from home looks so much fun. Anyway, and because I am introverted, working from home is the dream, right? It's the dream for an introvert. All introverts, I'm sure, love working from home. Thank you, pandemic. Anyway, so what happened is I saw my partner or husband. I'm so not used to calling him husband. Just got married last year. Anyway, but we've been together 9 years. Anyway, so I would see him just, having this amazing job. And so then I planted the seed to the universe. I said, universe, I really, really want, actually, I didn't even say I really want. I just said one day I always actually, this is the thing I want people to actually know, because I'm pretty sure I did it with my property as well. Instead of saying I want, I said one day I will. One day I will. It's probably the key line, and you have to really believe it with conviction. One day I will have a job that allows me to work from home, allows me to start late because I'm nocturnal and I sleep really late, and my manager will respect me, because unfortunately I've been in jobs where I had not so great managers. And lastly, it will pay me good money. Lo and behold, I think about a year or two after planting that seed, I had a recruiter approach me. Like, I didn't sort of do anything. Like, I sort of planted the seed and let it go, and then went about my business and just continued my work. But then I had a recruiter approach me and basically poach me from my last job into this following job. And the role she presented to me, or the offer, the opportunity, was everything that I asked for. Get to work from home, get to start late. Well, to be honest, I actually didn't get to start late. I still had to do 9 to 5, but because I proved to my manager, who was very respectful and appreciative of my work, she allowed me to start later. And so I ended up, starting around 10:30 in the day, but finishing around 6:30, which is fine for me because I don't mind staying late. I just struggle with mornings because, as mentioned, I am nocturnal. Not nocturnal. Night owl. So anyway, so basically, yeah, that job ticked all my boxes. So with that manifestation, I didn't really have to do any extra work. I sort of just let it be. So I want people to understand that there's certain manifestations where you will require to take a little bit of action, and there's going to be others where you can sort of just surrender and let it happen and just trust it will happen. I think, belief and, believing with conviction, and sort of using the types of words or sayings or phrases that sort of emphasize that you believe it will happen. Like, one day I will have XYZ. One day I will become a blah, 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 blah. Like, one day I, Tayo, will be some kind of leader. I just planted that right now. Anyway, yeah, you've got to really believe it. And then the second part to it is also discerning when you need to sort of take action to help get the ball rolling, and when you don't. Now, I want to sort of make people aware and mindful of when they're sort of operating in what I call desperate energy, and where they're chasing the manifestation, the thing that they're wishing to manifest. And I just want to sort of give a little warning that when you sort of chase, or you're in desperate energy for something, you tend to attract things that sort of aren't in alignment with you. Or actually, let me rephrase, it is in alignment with your desperate energy. So you're not vibrating at a high frequency. You're attracting something at a low frequency because you're in desperate energy, which matches, if that makes sense. Now, let me give you some examples, just so you understand what I mean by desperate energy or chasing things. Now, if you don't know, I connect with a lot of different kinds of people. Like, I speak to a lot of different people, and, I pick up patterns. Like, I can read patterns and I see patterns. And what I've noticed is that, sometimes, like, people chase or throw themselves onto things, and that attracts the wrong sort of things, right? For example, let's say you're trying to attract your soulmate, right? And let's say, you went and got a psychic or mediumship reading or intuitive reading from someone, any psychic, any intuitive. There's many out there and they're all amazing. Love you guys. Anyway, and then the psychic tells you that they foresee, they see that, in your future, there is a guy coming or woman, whatever floats your boat. And then instead of surrendering and just allowing it to happen, you get attached to that outcome, to that vision that's been given to you. And then what happens is you start attaching to every person you meet, in the sense that every person you meet, you keep going back to, "Oh, could that person be my soulmate? Or could that person be my soulmate?" And that's what I call desperate energy and attaching and chasing. And you don't want to be in that energy, because what tends to happen, what I've seen, is these people who get attached end up throwing themselves on every single person they meet, because in their mind, they're thinking, this is the one, because I heard that he or she is coming. So this must be the person. But let me tell you this, the right person will come by very unexpectedly. You don't have to chase them. The one that is meant for you will come at the right time very naturally. But if you're going out there throwing yourself or forcing situations to happen, then it's likely not the one. So I want to repeat that. If you are forcing situations to happen, putting yourself in places where you could cross paths with XYZ person, then you're forcing the situation, right? And I just want people to really sort of understand that energy. And what will eventually happen, or evidently happens, is because you've thrown yourself and forced these situations. You meet the guy, girl, and then you go on a few dates, and then, you think, oh, it's all going well, and then poof, it doesn't work out. Why? Because that person actually wasn't the one, and you had forced that situation to happen. But at the end of the day, perhaps that's your lesson to learn as well. But I want people to understand, if you really want to manifest things, just trust in the process. Yes, there are times where you're going to have to, take action, but there's certain situations where you don't. For example, when it comes to meeting your soulmate, those situations, I would say you don't need to take any action. Just trust in the process. To be honest, you want to be vibrating at the highest frequency, so that when you're meeting the right person, they're a match to you. So if you haven't done enough inner work, if you have not healed, if you are not in a good state, the people you will attract are likely at that same state, right? So if you want to attract a really good man, you better make sure that you're operating at a really good level. Understood? I hope so. And yeah, I want people to understand that I totally understand this, because prior to my current partner, my husband, I had met I had been in 3 other long-term relationships, plus a lot of bits and bob guys, okay? And, those 3 other long-term relationships, like my first one was when I was 19 for 4 years, about 4 years. The next one was 3 years. The last one was 2 years. So you can see that I spent 10 years in, long-term relationships before I met my current partner, who I've been with for 9 years. So I spent like almost 20 years in relationships. So I have very good relationship experience. I also have very good work experience, because again, I spent 20 years working in a lot of different industries. So this is why I understand people and relationship dynamics very, very well, because I have that lived experience. Getting sidetracked. So I just want people to understand that if you want a good person, make sure you're making yourself a better person, because you will always attract what you're operating at. And, I am perfect example. Back in the day, when I hadn't done any of this spiritual work and really didn't understand myself, and I was a people pleaser and allowing people to just walk all over me, I attracted some pretty shitty people. And to be honest, my last relationship, no offense to my ex, but I'm sure he'll probably get mad, because truth was, he was a narcissist. And not many people know this, but it was a pretty a pretty dark time, to be honest. Like, I can name two dark times in my life. One was in primary school. There's only been two times in my life where I really thought about leaving this world. And there was a period during primary school, and then there was that period when I was dating my last partner, and people wouldn't know it because I was really good at hiding it. But yeah, I want people to understand, if you want better, then do better for yourself first. Focus on you first. And when you do that, you will eventually meet the right one. And, you'll know that the one that you meet is at your level. So yeah, that's my little sort of spiel. It's called a spiel. My little talk on not manifesting, and also a little bit side story on relationships. So I hope that helps anyone out there. And yeah, love you guys, and I hope to be on a little bit more. To be honest, I keep making excuses for myself, like, oh, I'm not ready, or blah blah, I need to make it perfect. But then, as Tony Robbins said, perfect is the lowest standard. By the way, I was doing Tony Robbins Unshakable Challenge, so that's probably why I'm motivated to do this video today. Anyway, goodbye guys. Love you all.